everyone. Now, I hate to start the first review of this season on a bit of a rant tangent, but there is kind of an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed, which is that despite this mostly being a solid episode that sets the stage for the season, after the crew list for season 2 got released, it already kind of sparked concerns of censorship among certain sections of the Eden Zero fandom, which has caused concerns for when that scene happens. And like clockwork, in response, I've already seen there's this big push on Twitter by that certain faction of the community pushing for a change in production committee and studio for season 3. Like, it's too late now for season 2, but if there is going to be any censorship, but this section is hoping that things can make a turnaround next season. And as much as I do respect the dedication of these individuals, I feel I have to be the realistic and level-headed one in the room, and unfortunately say it's not likely to happen. And for one very simple reason, technically two. The first, it's Twitter. Unfortunately, like online voices when it comes to are very minimal when it comes to how Japan views like opinions. Enough said there, but secondly, when it comes to the relationship between the anime manga industry and us, the Western audiences, there's kind of a dark reality, unfortunately, which is that we are flat out a voiceless consumer. For as much of a boon as anime and manga has had here in the West, the fact remains, even today, that Japan still very much tries to isolate itself from the rest of the world, and that includes with how they approach their entertainment industry. Don't get me wrong, there are certain exceptions to the rule, but by and large, any opinions, any financial numbers that come out of the West are, for the most part, ignored. And the only financials and opinions that Japanese animation companies do focus on are those of their own Japanese consumers. And I guess what I'm saying with this is, we're really just Western consumers are really just a secondary piggy bank, and the buck stops there. Like, so tying it back to Eden Zero's anime, any change that could potentially happen with Eden Zero's production, or any change we want to happen, lies in the lap of the Japanese viewership. They have to be the ones to make those demands themselves, or at the very least, Hiro Mashima himself needs to speak up about it. But honestly, though, I see the latter case is even less likely scenario to happen, because from what I've seen of Hiro Mashima over the years, the guy seems like he doesn't like to rock the boat all that much. Probably maybe he did in his younger years, but as an adult, I don't think, as a grown man, as an adult in his 40s, 50s, I don't think he's got the energy to really push back or anything like that. Like, he just wants to have fun with his life now. And to those who comment and ask, about the whole thing about the whole relationship with Western audiences and anime and manga, who say, well then, let's just stop buying anime and manga to show we want to be heard. Again, hate to tell you, but even then, that's not going to happen. They'll look at those declining numbers and simply go, oh well then. Anyway, how are numbers looking? And again, to push this point even further home, My Hero Academia is a great example to illustrate this point. A couple years back at a Comic-Con, Horikoshi openly admitted that yes, the story was being rushed to its conclusion, and it's in no small part due to the reception the villains received by the readership in Japan when he first introduced them in the Forest Camp training arc. The League of Villains are more or less universally loved by Western audiences, but around the time that happened in the story, MHA's readership numbers dropped like a stone in Japan, and that rejection of the villains forced Horikoshi to go back to the drawing board and abandon his 50-50 perspective plan he had for the story of 50% focus on the villains, 50% focus on the heroes, in favor of putting more focus on the heroes and less on the villains. And we see that also carried over into how Villain Academia was adapted into Season 5 of the anime. So it's kind of the same deal here. Unless Japan speaks out about the censorship, nothing is going to change about Eden Zero's adaptation. And I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying this is the dark reality of the industry. And let's be real. I don't think casual viewers of this series aren't likely to care anyways. I'm just saying. So I do hate it, but I do kind of don't like it either. But there is a certain reality we have to accept about this situation with it, I think. Sorry guys, I know that was a long tangent, a long rant, but aside from that though, this episode I feel was still a great start to the season. I do think the recap was a little unnecessary, as I think they could have gotten away with adapting a little bit more in the episode, but on the flip side to that, I really like how they expanded upon Rebecca's vision of a supposed future, although it kind of does make the reveal later on a lot more obvious, so that's a bit of an issue. But honestly, from there, they still ended the episode off in still an amazing way, because just within this one episode alone, we've already established what kind of a threat Drac and Joe really is. That the thing that makes Drac and Joe such a menace, such a cold, calculating villain, is not so much his strength, but more so his ability to control, whether that be information, money, people. He knows how to he knows how to profit, and he knows how to control the situation. He knows how to control the situation, how to preempt, and he's ruthless in how he preempts and takes controls of a situation. Like, barely, as we see, he barely gave the Eden Zero crew time to act or react before Shiki and the others even made it to Belial Gore. Joe made sure he had control over this entire encounter, which goes back to something I said in my manga reviews. But Drac and Joe feels like I don't know if it was intentional, but it definitely feels like they're accused with Drac and Joe that are taken from Cutler Beckett from the Dead Man's Chest and that World's End Pirates movies. Like, he's an evil piece of shit, and in a lot of ways he knows it, and he relishes in it, in who he is. But simultaneously to that, however much we may see what he does as greedy, corrupt, immoral, and just every form of evil, at the end of the day, he just sees himself as being a businessman. He's doing good business. And when you look at Belial Gore, it's not hard to see that he's really just that all he's really done is created a place where humans and aliens of any stripe can satiate their desires and indulge this. It just so happens that he's making money off it. Where it does go evil again, however, is how he uses those desires and indulgences to in order to lure people in for a very dark and very evil reason. Like, let's just say that there are reasons as to why he was on Gilst, and why he he's created this space in order to lure people in. It's not just about money, unfortunately, and that the part that isn't about money is the part that's what makes him honestly just even more evil. This in itself also leads, but the introduction to Belial Gore and just exploring in the way we did, it also leads to an unexpected reunion of sorts between Weiss and a much older Sabir, who now works as a bartender in one of Belial Gore's dives, I guess you could say. And obviously this Sabir is the one we know as the person we know as Professor Weiss knew. And honestly, I never realized this until much later in the series, but one of Eden Zero's many strengths, I believe, is in its ability to give us just enough baseline context to understand the relationship among characters, only to give us a much more expanded viewpoint much later. And even though Sabir is talking about Weiss's older counterpart a lot of times, I do like how just meeting this much older version gave Weiss it gave both Weiss and Sabir a new perspective on each other. At least for Weiss, it gave him a little interesting perspective on the Sabir he knew as well, and kind of being something that is likely to stick with him moving forward. And I also, even more than Weiss though, I do like how it is giving Pino the opportunity to kind of face her demons. That even though this isn't the Sabir who tormented her, who basically who tormented her, who abused her, it is still someone she fears. So it's the idea of like just overcoming those fears, those prejudices, just trying to move on. Now, let's talk about the opening and ending, because as far as that goes, they're fine, but you can tell this is where the studio cut a few corners, as the band singing this, as the singer band singing this opening is the same one who did the first opening. But for anyone who hasn't started watching the season yet, I do gotta recommend you skip the opening, at least until you reach a certain point, because oh doggy, there's way more spoilers in this opening than there was in the last one. And we didn't technically get an ending, but we did hear, I think, what the ending song might be, and it's rather soothing for the content we're going to cover. So if that's the ending, I'll be curious what visuals they have to match it. With that said, I do want to backtrack a bit to the beginning of the episode, where we see Witch showing Homer the ropes of what it means to be one of the shining stars, and especially like Valkyrie's replacement. So it's there where we also get introduced to the Eden Zero's classified secret, a large vault labeled code 3173, Etherion. And fairy tale throwback aside, without spoiling anything, Etherion is this series' biggest can of worms. Like when the reveal of what's behind that door happens, you'll not only be shocked, but you'll want to go back and just like look for any little context clues. Because trust me, what's behind that door, Hiro Mashima is going to spend excessive amounts of time setting up, but it's not going to be in like any blatant way. It's going to be in like little breadcrumb and little context clues kind of way. So it's like those little details you think aren't very important are going to become important to when this reveal happens much later on, and all those little things Mashima left behind. And again, looking back on all these breadcrumbs myself, it makes Etherion all the more exciting, but also terrifying in terms of seeing what anime-only watchers' reactions are going to be to this. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll, be sure to notification bell, the subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.